Alright guys, so this ought to be an exciting moment. I've had a little time to work on the 1811 here. I just got the new carburetor in the mail today, and as usual, things didn't quite go as planned, because nothing ever seems to go smoothly. Being an aftermarket carburetor, I had to change a couple things on it. I had to modify the throttle arm. I had to drill the hole out a little bit bigger to accommodate the little plastic bushing that holds the throttle cable in. So I had to drill that out to make that fit, and I also had to swap the choke shaft with the old carburetor because the lever on the end of the choke shaft where the choke cable hooks up was too short. This is the choke shaft that came with the new carburetor, and the arm on the end is too short. Here's the old carburetor, by the way. Evidently the guy had it apart before because it has a brand new fuel bowl and float, but it's really just not ideal to rebuild one of these original Walbro carbs. You can see there's no adjustment jet on the top. It's basically like trying to put lipstick on a pig, or so to speak. But anyway, I've put a little gas in the tank and double checked to make sure that the fuel pump was working, which it is. It is getting fuel up to the carburetor. I just tightened it down and made sure all the gaskets were in place. And let's see if we can get this Kohler Magnum to fire up. It's 12:30 in the morning, by the way, so hope the neighbors like the sound of this thing firing up. I'll have to pull it out as quick as I can. Still have to mess with the choke a little bit. The choke and the throttle cables are not, they're a little bit out of whack, but let's see if the battery has any charge, see if we can get this thing to fire up. Just like that. Gotta love it. Let me get this thing outside real quick. Yeah, she's cold-blooded. I gotta close the choke. The choke is stuck. It lives. Let me get the flashlight real quick. Gotta love a Kohler, fires right up. Looks like I have a bit of a leak at the 90-degree fitting there going into the carburetor, so I'll have to fix that. Alright, there we go. Yeah, like I said, the choke is still a little finicky. I have to adjust it. I'll have to tighten up that clamp. Well, that's not good. Huh, that's disappointing. I wonder what caused that. Alright guys, so I kind of had a bit of a sticky situation last night, as you guys saw. What happened was the crankcase was filling up with gas, and then it was causing the oil level to be over full, and it would blow the oil and gas mixture out of the breather tube, and it got all over the top of the engine and all inside the air intake and everything, and all over the nice new carburetor. So that's my kind of luck for you. But I started it up this morning. I left it outside overnight and hosed it all down to get the oil, or get some of the oil off of it at least. I'll have to go back with some gum cutter and take the rest of that grease off. But I left it outside overnight just in case, you know, any excess fuel leaks were to ignite for some reason. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't want to take any risks. So I figured I would just call it quits and go inside for the night. But I just started it up today, and it runs fine. I haven't noticed any gas leaks or anything. I still have to let this water dry out, so I'm letting the engine run so it can evaporate some of that off. But I'm not seeing any more gas leaks like I was last night. I'm thinking maybe the fuel pump was just overloaded and it was trying to pump excess fuel into the system, and some of it might have leaked into the crankcase. I don't know though. The oil is a little thin because it was diluted with gas, so I'm gonna run it just a little bit longer, and then I'll change the oil. I'm gonna put some Rotella 15W40 diesel oil in it, because that's what I swear by when it comes to these opposed twin engines, especially in the winter with it being as cold as it is. So I'm gonna run it a little bit, change the oil and filter. And one thing I forgot to mention about this engine is it has an external oil filter with the feed lines, which is kind of cool. Makes it a little easier to change the filter, but evidently that filter hasn't been changed in a while, so I'm going to change it and flush the crankcase out, put some fresh oil in it, and go from there. Alright guys, so that's about it for this video. I finally got everything dialed in and set just right. I adjusted the carb a little bit per the Kohler manual and got the idle set where I want it. A lot of the Kohler opposed twin engines I see have the idle set a little bit too low, so I turned the idle up just a little bit. You obviously don't want to idle them too low because then you don't get enough oil pressure. But I think I have it set right where I want it. It sounds pretty cool. It actually sounds like my uncle's Ford 3-cylinder diesel tractor at an idle, which is kind of neat. It sounds just like it. That's what's cool about these opposed twin engines. They sound like little diesels. But yeah, I was a little nervous there at first, but I determined that it wasn't a bad fuel pump. I thought it was a bad fuel pump, but it actually wasn't. Turns out last week when I tried to get the thing running when I first got it home, I guess I cranked it over too much, and all the fuel that I was dumping into the carburetor got down into the crankcase. So when I got the new carburetor put on and fired it up, all that gas that was in the crankcase shot up through the breather, because it basically mixed with the oil and caused the oil to be to register at a really high level. So it shot the excess out of the breather. But I haven't had that issue now since I got everything cleaned up. I changed the oil twice actually. I put fresh Rotella 15W40 diesel oil in it, the same stuff I run in the Onins, because that's, in my opinion, that's what's best for these opposed twin engines. They have the diesel oil has better lubricity properties than regular straight 30 or, God forbid, 10W30. I put an original or an OEM Kohler filter on it, and I changed the oil once, ran it around for a little bit, flushed it out to make sure all the gas and the old oil was out of it, and then I put fresh Rotella 15W40 in it again. So it should be good to go now. Seems to be running really good. Throttle's a little bit sensitive. I might have to do a little more adjusting to it, but it sounds really good. Pretty cool sound. So I'm just gonna running around a little bit more, blow the cobwebs out of it. You can see it's blowing little pieces of dirt and dust and what looks like pieces of paper towel. So I think the next thing on the list is to clean the engine compartment, take the shrouds and stuff off, and clean everything out from inside the tins. As I mentioned before, that's the trick to keeping the opposed twin engines running efficiently and lasting a long time. Of course, when the oil and gas spewed out of the breather, it spilled all over the engine, so it gave the engine a nice coat, as you can see here. So I'm going to take some gum cutter and spray the whole engine compartment down and then hose it all down. That'll come next. I also have to get a hold of an air cleaner cover and an air filter, because this engine didn't have the air filter with it, which was kind of a bad sign, but again, for what I paid for the tractor, I couldn't really complain. I can find an air cleaner assembly fairly cheap. So cleaning the engine compartment is going to be the next step. Then I'll, do a usual tune-up on it. I'll change the plugs, change the air filter, and do, whatever other adjustments it needs. And then I'll pressure wash the rest of the tractor and get the layer of dirt, grease, and what looks to be moss off of it too. Evidently, it sat outside. And I think I'm going to change the taillight lenses, or the taillight bulbs. I mean, this one works, but the other one doesn't, and the headlights don't work either. This has a 4-position key switch, so the headlights and taillights are supposed to come on when you have the key turned to a certain setting, but obviously they don't. And like I said, the one taillight is the only one that works. So I'll probably change those bulbs too. And then I'll change the oil and the filter on the transaxle, because it's making a lot of noise. It's pretty loud, so it's due for an oil change anyway. But yeah, that's it for the 1811 for now. I'll be making more videos of it in the future. I just figured you guys wanted to see me bring it back to life, and I'm glad we were able to avert a crisis. I figured maybe the fuel pump was bad, or had a blown head gasket or something, or had excessive blow-by, but I guess not. So it runs perfect. I'm happy with it. So that's it for now, guys. Talk to you later. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you're ever working on one of these old Kohler engines and you're having carburetor problems with it, and you decide the carburetor needs to be rebuilt, and you tear it apart to find out that it's one of these Walbro carburetors, don't bother. This is how you fix the problem.